Hello everyone, this is Bradley. So sometimes when I'm making all this kind of demonstration, I do not know where to start and what should I actually say. So on Wednesday, actually 2 days ago, I downloaded the newest 3.0 alpha because I have been away from Blender for a very long time. My last Blender version was, I think it's on September 9th. And the last version is probably I forgot. But anyway, so it's a half month's distance, and when I opened the newest 3.0 alpha, I'm kind of astonished. I know about the field, and you see I've uploaded even tutorials with the field in the past. But a lot of still many things has been changed, which actually surprised me. Anyway, so yesterday I was making kind of animation, so I get kind of a lot of I find a lot of issues with the workflow, and I'm always thinking about how to make the kind of preset to speed up the workflow, make the several things more convenient and less nodes possible. And you know that even in 2.93 I made some stupid presets talking about the mograph, like the different types of Falloff. And I'm basically doing the same things within these new systems. And these are the nodes that I made for the moment. So you can download that for free. It's still under development, but really there are several things I really like. Is we started to have this vector rotate node. And we start to have a switch node. There is an issue with the switch node, however. I will discuss this later. Basically, we have field, so all the attribute has been gone. We have all this kind of field instead. But the issue is the switch node actually does not receive field. As you see, there's a kind of red lines, and it's really not working. So this is one of the issues, but I see very bright futures with the 3.0. I think this preset library will probably grow even larger and more interesting as the time goes. So this video is more likely really talking about kind of a preset I make. I don't intend to make this as an official demonstration, but I hope it becomes a time that I make all these kind of examples while I'm explaining what we can do with this kind of stuff. So the first thing I think which comes to your eyes is this setup, which is directional Falloff. Let's lock this. Okay, so we have this directional Falloff, and in the past I have made directional Falloff, and this time it's being done better because now you can rotate. In the past you can also rotate, but I did a lot of crazy stuff in order to make it rotatable. But now it seems working pretty amazing. I don't even know how I did this. And you can scale up and down of your object to change the scale of your Falloff. And yeah. There's several settings. For example, you have objects original relative. This original relative is because when you take the object info, there is original and relative. I used to understand the difference between these two, but now I actually forget everything. So I just keep these. Because these settings is not readily reachable. So I made a switch. Another minimum and maximum is not something I would like to readily discuss because I found a bug with this maximum. I forgot. I do not really know why. I probably will investigate that later. But this is scale. Oh, I think the reason this max does not work is because I clamped that. I probably can just hide this. Does not really matter. But the scale is really working to make it beyond the maximum. The XYZ options is to evaluate different direction, because if you look at the arrows, it's always evaluating the X. But these settings is not working because, as I said, switch does not receive field. So you will always have bugs. So even if I already built these large node trees, but I'm actually only outputting the first nodes to to the end instead of using the switch, which I made with all these kind of crazy nodes. And there is a red bug because of the issue with the switch nodes. But I think it will be fixed some moments, and finally we will have everything available. Okay. So this is one example. Second example we're going to deal with, actually it's just the second nodes, because we have not only one fault but also many other faults. For example, the proximity fault. Proximity fault is like, I don't know, I think I'm going to improve that a little bit, because I feel like I have to, oh, by the way, I have to, if I'm setting the boolean into the object, I'm using the object, not using the target. So I select the object, then it's done. But it seems I still need to put the position. So, okay, fine. I think I can simplify this a little bit so that I do not add the position outside, but I think it will be okay. And the maximum, minimum, which is okay, and original and relative the same as the earlier, but you can also change the type into target. For example, if I'm having a cube, but and then we need the object info, and I don't know why it does not really work. This is probably a bug, and I have to fix that somehow. Why it's not doing anything? Probably because I don't have enough vertices. For example, if I subdivide that, still not sure why. Yeah, this is really a mystery, but I think I will deal with that later. Currently, this is not a big deal. At least for the points, it's working pretty well. I have my sphere, and you can increase that, decrease that. Pretty amazing. Okay, so this part is nice. There's also probably some organization. Like, I want to move this a little bit up. The good part of Geomtry nodes is nowadays when you set all this kind of preset, you can actually make things very easy, very easy. So I really like this actually. And you can also change the data type from the boolean and other things. Change the default values, hide the values, whatever. And you can also deal with these outputs changing. So this is really a very nice update, in my opinion. So move on with the other options. So let's forget about this. Let's just use. Let's pretend that there's no buggy things occurs in this demonstration. So after we've done with the proximity fault, there's another fault that I made. Actually, there are another two, which one of them is the radio fault. Radio fault, I put the scales, it just have the radius. There's another thing that you can do. For example, let's rotate. No, because the switch nodes does not receive a field, so this option is not working. But you get a kind of idea. We can change the maximum, we can change the minimums. It's kind of okay. Everything's perfect. Okay, fine. We can also deal with this offset so that you can rotate. I'm not sure if you would like this, because anyway, does not really matter as yet. So I also did this object, but I didn't have a chance to really test that. So if I can actually, yeah, it's kind of a little bit weird, isn't it? So it goes the opposite direction. So I think I'm going to fix that later. I'm not 100% sure why exactly it happens in this case. Why it's not following the direction. But I think it will be fine. Okay, so by the moment you actually deal with it, I think I hope all the bugs will be fixed, or I will just leave it and I will fix that when the system becomes more completed. Oh, Jesus Christ, did I just delete it? Yes, I should keep them. So you get a kind of rough idea about how these three nodes works. There's one more fault, which is index mask fault. I realized I probably did something wrong with this fault. Yeah, it's not working because you need the position. Yes, once you get a position, so every second point will actually be affected. interestingly, it has a different stuff, a different effect, because it's working on every second of vertices. So let's decrease the subdivision so you can see this interesting pattern. This is a little bit different from my expectation. I am not 100% sure why this happens. I'm not 100% sure why this happens actually. So let's get into next example. Actually, I didn't really make the next examples. Wait. So next example, and I'm going to lock it. The next example is yes, this is vector noise. So sometimes when you make kind of a terrain, or you want to have some noise for or random value, there is a node, I think, random value. Yes, there is a node called random value. This node does give you random value, but these are really 100% random value. So from node to node, from value to value, they probably has no connection to each other. But in other cases, if you're using noise texture, then you always have this random value. The issue of this noise texture that you always have to deal with is it outputs the value from 0 to 1. So you have this kind of effect. It's not a really 100% displacement modifier, because if you want a displacement modifier, probably just combine X, Y, Z and add everything on X. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, it reminds me of the fact that that's how to change that. Okay, I would. Anyway, so this is vector noise. It just add whatever stuff in to make it kind of abstract shape. This is really not a displacement modifier, but I'm going to show you things later. So this is the scale, and you can change the scale, which determine the noise. I think this is too chaotic. 1 is actually too much, I think. So you can make it a smoother or more kind of jaggy. I think I'm going to change this a little bit, otherwise this looks so horrible, because you can increase infinitely. Let's just change this. Just change this scale to from 0 to 10, so that this slider will make it a little bit easier to deal with. Actually, even I'm going to deal with this. 3. Yeah, so now it's kind of the scrolling speed, and then this is detail. I honestly do not really care about this roughness. What can roughness do? This is the shader nodes. I probably would just delete it because I don't see it makes sense anyway. It makes sense, but I don't understand. Anyway, distortion is a little bit interesting, but it just makes everything worse. Forget about that. Interesting thing is the seed, actually. You can actually change the seed. So these seeds, normally when we're talking about a noise texture, you probably think, we are going to make that a 4D and change the W. It actually it's working, but I've heard that if you go from 3D to 4D, sometimes it's a little bit costly for the performance. So you may want to avoid that if possible. So I just come up with another method to deal with the vector, which is pretty simple. Just change the seed. Anyway, just change the seed. Do you care about details, how I do that? So it's a 3D noise by changing the vector to make the seed. This is not really a good method. This is a very good method because you put a vector in, you put the vector out. There's another noise 3D, which actually really generates noise. So you have the vector, you have the color, which is basically the noise. And it's basically doing the same thing. I do not really know the 100% difference. Sometimes I think there's pros and cons in different approaches, but this is you have the middle. Yeah, this is why I implemented this mid-level, because if you do not offset this mid-level, sometimes it's just the displacement from that direction, because everything there is positive. It's not going upward, it's not only going upwards, but also going this direction and this direction. Okay. Yeah, a very nice example. Why don't I show this earlier? And you can increase the scale of noise. I will keep these nodes. Several seconds ago, I was thinking to delete these nodes. Do I need to deal with this seed? Okay, I started to actually a little bit understand why changing my seed will cause that issue, but I do not know. I realized some issues, but anyway, I will deal with myself. And you can always use the object coordinates to move all this kind of whatever stuff. So this might be even convenient than dealing with all this kind of small stuff. This is my opinion. Okay, so this is the index mask Falloff. We do not need this. Other nodes that represent within this example's noise 3D object coordinates. Object coordinate is basically just used within these nodes. Yes. Pretty simple. Yeah, I think there's another example I can present with this mix XYZ. So the next example that I'm going to deal with, so let's select the nodes and create a new node tree. Let's call it AX3, example 3. It's the mix XYZ. I do not know what we can do exactly, like the shortest, the simplest example to demonstrate that. So basically we mix XYZ it actually means a mix vector. I hate these names. I do not want to call this combine XYZ a combine vector as a combine XYZ, but this is the tradition of Blender. So I think it might be better to follow that tradition so that you understand what you do. The only issue is that you can actually do this MixRGB. Okay, but I realized the issue of this mix, the difference between this mix, the issue of this MixRGB. So if it might be easier to watch in this shader, and I do not know what kind of example I can actually give. So we have this plane, and if we just transform this plane, so we're going to do something very stupid. No, this is not a very good example. So sometimes people might be wondering in this the field proposal that how did you get the position data from this geometry? Then it's the time to use the attribute capture, and we're going to use the vector. Pick the position. So we attribute the capture, so it outputs the position at this geometry. Okay, and then we are going to transform this stuff to 1 meters high, probably 0.5 meters high, and let's add some rotation just to make it a little bit interesting. Okay, and I'm going to make this the entire plane shifting between these two status. So here let's add a new attribute capture, and you can use the same position nodes, because these kind of position nodes or normal nodes or index nodes, they by themselves they do not carry any data. Okay, so they do not carry any data. So this is the interesting part with the field. When they connected to these nodes, they are evaluated based on the context of these nodes. So the position is which actually means this linkage and this linkage actually contains completely different data, even if they come from the same position node. So sometimes maybe it might be better if you just use a second position node, so that you know, oh, this position node may not be the same as this position node, but it looks exactly the same. This is the confusing part of the field, but if you understand that, or you just don't worry about that. You understand that, it will be nice. You don't understand that, just don't worry about that. So now we have this kind of two position, and we can try to mix them and try to see with this set position. And yes, so now we can actually use this mix to effect this mixing. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting part with the MixRGB, which actually means MixVector, because you need to know that color and the vector are essentially the same. So vector is basically 3 float numbers being listed in terms of x, y, z. So this is our combined x, y, z. 3 numbers are floats. You can take a value. They're doing essentially the same, right? And the combined color, a combined RGB, essentially is exactly the same. They're just being called different, but they are 100% the same. Okay. So vector and the color are the same. So if you want to like the mix, you do not find a mix vector or mix XYZ, you can use the mix RGB. So this is the case, but I found a very big issue, and I talked with developer. I did not really get some good answers yet. So I'm not sure if they are going to change their decision. So in animation nodes, if you increase this vector beyond, because you can always manually type these values beyond their limitation. For example, I type 3. Then this rotation should actually go beyond factor 1, but it's not doing this. So I think this is actually an issue. And this is the same behavior in shader. So I think this is really an issue that the developer needs to recognize and deal with. Because I think my proposal makes sense. But if they do not, then I have my own nodes. The inner structure is pretty easy. So here's the case. I have this position and I have this factor 0 to 1, doing 100% the same thing. But if I increase this factor to 3, then it will actually keep increasing, and you can see it's going beyond the level. So sometimes if you're working with shape keys, and where's my shape keys? And add another shape keys, for example, and rotate this. You can see you have the range minimum and the maximum, but you can increase these values. No, you can actually increase the range to 3, and it does affect something beyond. So this is what I'd like to see from this MixRGB, but it's not being implemented in this case. So yeah, I have my own nodes, which is very easy to make. So this is good when you're working things like my previous posted animation, that you have all this kind of flying whatever stuff unlimitedly to the sky. So you do not need to control every values, but it's very easy to deal with. So kind of idea. I don't know if you understand, but it will be. And by the time you see this video and you get this file with all this kind of example, it probably contains more presets. I'm not sure if I'm going to add more. I'm not sure if I'm going to add more examples, but you will definitely have some more group nodes than you see here. This is my expectation. I actually already get 2 more ideas. So currently this is just kind of whatever stuff, and I hope you get some idea of geometry nodes, enjoy the fields, and play with it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll probably see you next time. Bye bye.